A derelict, but this corner of North Yorkshire is a place of pilgrimage for hundreds of Canadians, wartime airmen who this week will be returning to their old bomber base in the biggest reunion in living memory.
To see these boys leaving for their aircraft, one would never think that they're soon to travel hundreds of hazardous miles through ice, fog, storms and fire. They might be going to an old-fashioned corn roast on some nearby beach.
This rare newsreel, just restored by Calendar, shows the men of No. 6 Group Bomber Command preparing for their nightly missions to Germany. Canadians manned 15 of North Yorkshire's biggest bomber bases. 800 planes and crews never came back. Most were men who'd crossed the Atlantic to defend a country that they'd only read about in books.
As you at home sit by your firesides and read or hear of strong formations of bombers over Germany night after night, you may well be proud that Canada is there in force with the Royal Air Force, adding weight to the hammer blows on the enemy.
One of the Canadians hammering Hitler was Flight Lieutenant Bill Cooper. Today, in his late 60s and living in Toronto, he's recently retired just to help organise the remarkable reunion of his wartime comrades. Here in Canada, memories of the bomber offensive against Germany are fresh, not least because of the terrible losses.
Of the 17,000 Canadians killed in the war, 10,000 were killed in 6th Group, at least in Bomber Command. And we thought it was about time that somebody put up a memorial. I was 20, and now mind you, we had gunners on our crew who turned 19 halfway through a tour of ops. My navigator, who was a great friend of mine, was an old, respected man. He was married and had 2 children before he went in the Air Force. And we all went to his 26th birthday party.
The first complete squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Force arrives in Britain.
It was a friendly invasion. Many of the Canadians came straight from the prairies, only to find their new home was the very different rural surroundings of the Vale of York. Overnight, villages like Tholthorpe near Easingwold found themselves playing host to 2,000 foreign servicemen. Even after 40 years, the Canadians are fondly remembered, particularly in the local pub, because their exploits at the bar were almost as legendary as those in the air. Today, the former airfield's owned by local farmer Jeff Wood, then a schoolboy befriended by the bomber crews.
I often say I don't know how they coped with it, because there was stress that we just don't understand now. But they're a grand bunch, and they still are.
The Canadians were all volunteers. Their government picked up the enormous bill for the planes, fuel and bombs, yet many from French-speaking areas spoke little English.
Tension inside the crew room before the flight is like the locker room at school before the big hockey game. Everyone is under a certain nervous strain from the time he knows what the target is to be until he's on the way. But like the hockey player, as soon as the whistle blows, he has no time for misgiving.
Well, first, the village knew about it was that an armed guard would put on the telephone box, and then, of course, a few hours later, there'd be a lot of noise as they engines were started up, and the other airfields round about, of course, were sending aircraft off at the same time. So there would be literally hundreds of aircraft in the air from a few feet to many thousands of feet. Really fantastic sight.
Many of the veterans will be visiting the graves of 600 comrades who never made it back and are buried here at Stonefall Cemetery near Harrogate. Back in Canada, they've never been forgotten. This memorial takes pride of place in Toronto's city centre.
I went to North Toronto Collegiate, and of the 32 people on that football team, 13 that I know of were killed in aircrew. At one point in 1944, 25% of all the aircrew in Bomber Command were Canadians. So we had quite a representation for a very small country.
For the veterans who did make it back, this is expected to be the first and last mass reunion of 6th Group Bomber Command. The advance guard have been here several weeks preparing the itinerary.
There'll be a great deal of emotion. They'll hope to meet up with people they haven't seen for many years, and I think they probably will be surprised at how many people they know.
And the people of Tholthorpe at least are looking forward to renewing a 40-year-old friendship.